Captain Marcus Blackwood had served the royal family for 12 years without a single incident. His record was spotless, his loyalty unquestioned, and his dedication absolute. Every morning at precisely 5:30 a.m., he would begin his routine that had become as natural as breathing. The palace corridors knew his footsteps. The guards respected his commands, and the royal family trusted him with their lives. On that particular Tuesday morning in September, nothing seemed different. The autumn air carried a crisp promise of winter, and the palace grounds were painted in shades of gold and amber. Marcus conducted his usual security briefing with his team of 24 guards. They discussed the day's schedule, potential threats, and protocol adjustments. Princess Catherine was scheduled to attend a charity gala that evening, which meant heightened security measures and careful coordination with local authorities. Marcus was a man of details. He noticed when a maid changed her usual cleaning routine, when a gardener worked in a different section of the grounds, or when a delivery arrived 5 minutes later than scheduled. This attention to detail had earned him his position as head of royal security at the remarkably young age of 32. His colleagues often joked that he could spot a needle in a haystack while blindfolded. The morning proceeded without incident. Marcus personally inspected every entrance to the palace, checked communication systems, and reviewed the guest list for the evening's event. His team was well-trained and efficient, each member knowing their role perfectly. The palace operated like a well-oiled machine under his supervision. Around noon, Marcus received a routine medical delivery for the palace's small infirmary. Dr. Eleanor Webb, the royal physician, had ordered some standard medical supplies. The delivery came from Harrison Medical Supply Company, a trusted vendor the palace had used for over a decade. The delivery man, James Morrison, was familiar to the guards and had proper identification and authorization codes. Marcus followed protocol and personally inspected the delivery. Inside the sealed medical box were various supplies, bandages, antiseptics, medications, and several pre-filled syringes containing what the labels identified as emergency epinephrine. Everything appeared normal and properly sealed. The documentation matched the order placed by Dr. Webb, and all security seals were intact. However, something felt slightly off to Marcus, though he couldn't pinpoint exactly what. The delivery driver seemed more nervous than usual, kept checking his watch, and avoided direct eye contact. These were subtle signs that most people would dismiss, but Marcus had learned to trust his instincts. His intuition had saved lives before. He decided to conduct a more thorough inspection of the medical supplies. Each item was examined carefully, and he noticed that one of the epinephrine syringes had a microscopic difference in its labeling. The font was slightly different, almost unnoticeable unless you were looking for inconsistencies. It was such a minor detail that even a careful observer might miss it. Marcus immediately contacted Dr. Webb to verify the order details. She confirmed that she had indeed ordered the supplies but mentioned she wouldn't need them until the following week. This discrepancy raised red flags in Marcus's mind. Why would a routine delivery arrive early? And why did the delivery driver seem so anxious to leave quickly? Following security protocol, Marcus decided to quarantine the entire shipment until Dr. Webb could personally verify each item. The delivery driver was asked to wait while additional verification was conducted. This was standard procedure for any suspicious deliveries, though it rarely needed to be implemented. Dr. Webb arrived within minutes to inspect the medical supplies. She immediately noticed the same labeling inconsistency that Marcus had spotted. Her medical expertise allowed her to identify additional irregularities that Marcus had missed. The suspicious syringe's liquid had a slightly different color and consistency compared to the others. The situation escalated quickly. Dr. Webb recommended immediate testing of the suspicious syringe, while Marcus initiated lockdown procedures for the affected area of the palace. The delivery driver was detained for questioning. Though he claimed complete ignorance about any problems with the shipment, palace security contacted the Harrison Medical Supply Company to trace the delivery chain. The company's records showed that they had indeed prepared and sent the order, but upon closer inspection, they discovered that their delivery van had been briefly unattended at a rest stop during the route to the palace. Someone could have accessed the vehicle during that window. The investigation revealed a sophisticated plot. Someone had intercepted the legitimate medical delivery, replaced one of the epinephrine syringes with a poisoned substitute, and then allowed the delivery to continue to the palace. The timing was precise and the execution was nearly flawless. If not for Marcus's keen observation skills and instinct for detail, the poisoned syringe could have been used on a member of the royal family. During a medical emergency, laboratory analysis later confirmed that the suspicious syringe contained a lethal combination of toxins designed to mimic anaphylactic shock. The poison would have been virtually undetectable during an emergency situation, and the victim would appear to have died from natural causes or an allergic reaction. It was the assassination method that required extensive medical knowledge and careful planning. The revelation sent shockwaves through the palace security team. Someone with inside knowledge had orchestrated this attack, knowing exactly when medical supplies would be delivered and how the palace's medical protocols operated. The enemy wasn't just external. There was likely a traitor within their trusted circle. Marcus realized that his routine inspection had prevented what could have been a royal assassination. The weight of this responsibility hit him suddenly. One small detail, one moment of following his instincts had potentially saved a life. But now came the more challenging task: identifying who was behind this sophisticated plot and ensuring it never happened again. The investigation was just beginning, and Marcus knew that the next few days would test every skill he had developed during his 12 years of service. The palace was no longer the safe haven it had always seemed to be. Somewhere in their trusted network of suppliers, staff, or even colleagues, a deadly enemy was waiting for another opportunity to strike. The investigation began immediately after the poisoned syringe was discovered. Marcus worked closely with Detective Inspector Sarah Collins from Scotland Yard's Specialized Royal Protection Unit. She was a seasoned investigator with 15 years of experience in high-profile cases, known for her methodical approach and sharp analytical mind. The first priority was analyzing the chain of custody for the medical delivery. Harrison Medical Supply Company provided detailed records of their preparation and dispatch procedures. The company had been serving the royal household for over 10 years without incident, making this breach particularly concerning. Their reputation was built on reliability and security, which made the compromise even more mysterious. Marcus and Detective Collins traced every step of the delivery route. The van had left Harrison Medical at 9:15 a.m., driven by James Morrison, who had been with the company for 7 years. Morrison had an impeccable record and passed all background checks when he was hired. His route to the palace included 3 scheduled stops for other deliveries, all of which were verified as legitimate. The critical break in the case came when they discovered security camera footage from a rest stop where Morrison had taken his lunch break. The footage showed Morrison's van parked in the designated area, and for approximately 8 minutes the vehicle was left unattended while he purchased food inside. During this window, a figure in dark clothing approached the van from behind, obscuring their face from the cameras. The mysterious person appeared to have a key or lock-picking tools, as they gained access to the van without any visible signs of forced entry. They spent exactly 4 minutes inside the vehicle before leaving through the same route they had approached. The timing was precise, suggesting this person knew Morrison's schedule and routine perfectly. Dr. Webb conducted extensive tests on the poisoned syringe while the investigation continued. Her analysis revealed that the toxin was a sophisticated blend of 3 different compounds: ricin, tetrodotoxin, and a synthetic paralytic agent. This combination would cause rapid respiratory failure while mimicking symptoms of severe anaphylactic shock. The victim would lose consciousness within minutes and die within 15 minutes, with little chance of revival even with immediate medical attention. The complexity of the poison indicated that the perpetrator had advanced knowledge of chemistry and toxicology. Dr. Webb explained that creating such a precise mixture required access to specialized equipment and materials that weren't readily available to the general public. This narrowed the suspect pool significantly, focusing attention on individuals with medical or scientific backgrounds. Marcus coordinated with palace personnel to review anyone who had access to information about medical deliveries and protocols. The list was surprisingly extensive, including palace staff, medical personnel, security team members, and external contractors. Each person would need to be investigated thoroughly, but time was of the essence since the perpetrator might attempt another attack. Meanwhile, Detective Collins discovered that the Harrison Medical Supply Company had recently hired a new inventory manager. Dr. Richard Pemberton. His background check had been completed just 2 months ago, and he had access to delivery schedules and customer information. His credentials were impressive: a PhD in biochemistry from Cambridge University, and previous experience with pharmaceutical companies. However, when they attempted to verify Dr. Pemberton's employment history, inconsistencies began to emerge. His previous employer, Meridian Pharmaceuticals, had no record of anyone by that name working for them. The references provided during his application process led to disconnected phone numbers or businesses that had closed years ago. His entire professional identity appeared to be fabricated. The investigation revealed that Dr. Richard Pemberton was actually Dr. Viktor Kozlov, a former Soviet biochemist who had disappeared from academic circles 15 years ago. Intelligence agencies had suspected him of selling chemical weapons technology to terrorist organizations, but he had vanished without a trace. His reappearance as a medical supply company employee was no coincidence. Marcus realized that they were dealing with a professional assassin with international connections. This wasn't a simple palace security breach. It was part of a larger conspiracy involving foreign agents and sophisticated chemical weapons. The implications were staggering, as it suggested that the royal family was being targeted by a well-funded and highly organized criminal network. Dr. Kozlov's employment at Harrison Medical had given him access to all royal household medical orders and delivery schedules. He knew exactly when supplies would be needed, which routes the delivery vans would take, and how palace security protocols operated. His knowledge of chemistry allowed him to create the perfect assassination weapon, disguised as legitimate medical supplies. The search for Dr. Kozlov intensified, but he had already disappeared from his apartment and workplace. His colleagues at Harrison Medical described him as quiet and professional, never socializing or sharing personal information. He had worked efficiently and competently, raising no suspicions about his true identity or intentions. Detective Collins coordinated with international law enforcement agencies to track Dr. Kozlov's movements. His disappearance coincided with several suspicious financial transactions involving offshore accounts and cryptocurrency transfers. The money trail suggested connections to organized crime syndicates operating across multiple countries. Marcus implemented emergency security measures throughout the palace. All medical supplies were to be personally verified by Dr. Webb before use. Delivery protocols were changed to include additional security checkpoints and random inspections. Background checks for all personnel were updated to include more comprehensive international database searches. The royal family was briefed on the situation, though details were kept confidential to prevent public panic. Princess Catherine's charity gala was postponed indefinitely, while security arrangements were reviewed and strengthened. The entire palace operated under heightened alert status, with additional guards stationed at all entrances and monitoring all communications. As the second day of investigation concluded, Marcus felt the weight of responsibility heavier than ever before. The discovery of Dr. Kozlov's true identity had transformed a seemingly isolated incident into an international security threat. Somewhere in the world, a dangerous criminal was planning his next move, and Marcus knew that preventing the next attack would require all of his skills and experience. The investigation was expanding beyond the palace walls, but the core challenge remained the same: protecting the royal family from a sophisticated enemy who had already proven capable of infiltrating their most trusted security systems. 3 days after discovering the poison syringe, Marcus began experiencing strange symptoms. It started with a slight headache during his morning security briefing, which he attributed to the stress of the ongoing investigation. He had been working 18-hour days coordinating with multiple law enforcement agencies and implementing new security protocols throughout the palace. By noon, the headache had intensified, and Marcus noticed a peculiar metallic taste in his mouth. His vision became slightly blurred when reading reports, and he felt unusually fatigued, despite having consumed his usual morning coffee. These symptoms were subtle enough that he initially dismissed them as exhaustion, but Dr. Webb's training had taught the entire security team to be alert for signs of poisoning. Detective Collins noticed Marcus's condition during their afternoon briefing. His usually sharp focus seemed scattered, and he paused frequently during conversations as if struggling to find words. When she asked about his well-being, Marcus admitted to feeling unwell but insisted on continuing his duties. The investigation was at a critical juncture, and he couldn't afford to step back now. Dr. Webb was immediately called to examine Marcus. Her medical assessment revealed several concerning symptoms: elevated heart rate, dilated pupils, mild tremors in his hands, and a slight disorientation. His blood pressure was higher than normal, and he complained of nausea and dizziness. These signs collectively suggested exposure to some form of toxin, though the specific poison remained unknown. The realization hit the investigation team like a thunderbolt. Somehow, despite all their precautions and security measures, Dr. Kozlov had managed to poison Marcus. The method of delivery was unclear, but the symptoms were consistent with several chemical agents that could be absorbed through skin contact or inhaled as microscopic particles. Dr. Webb immediately began emergency treatment protocols. Blood samples were drawn for comprehensive toxicology testing, while Marcus was given activated charcoal to absorb any remaining toxins in his digestive system. Intravenous fluids were administered to help flush his system, and his vital signs were monitored continuously. The investigation team worked frantically to determine how the poisoning had occurred. Every item Marcus had touched during the past 72 hours was collected for testing. His office, personal belongings, vehicle, and even his residence were examined for traces of chemical agents. The scope of the investigation expanded to include anyone who had been in close contact with Marcus during this period. Initial toxicology results revealed the presence of a slow-acting neurotoxin that had been absorbed through Marcus's skin. The poison was designed to build up gradually in his system, causing symptoms that would worsen over several days. Without proper treatment, the toxin would eventually cause respiratory failure and cardiac arrest, making the death appear to be from natural causes. Dr. Webb explained that this particular toxin was extremely sophisticated and difficult to detect without specific testing. It could be applied to surfaces in microscopic quantities and would remain active for days. The victim would unknowingly come into contact with the poison through normal daily activities, making it nearly impossible to identify the exact source of exposure. The investigation focused on items and surfaces that Marcus had handled repeatedly during recent days. His desk, computer keyboard, office door handles, and security equipment were all tested for chemical residue. The breakthrough came when they discovered traces of the neurotoxin on his official clipboard, which he used during daily security rounds throughout the palace. The clipboard had been contaminated with the poison in such a way that regular handling would cause gradual absorption through the skin. The toxin was mixed with a carrier agent that made it invisible and odorless, ensuring that Marcus would continue using the contaminated item without suspicion. The application had been expertly done, concentrating the poison on areas where Marcus's hands would make contact most frequently. This discovery revealed the terrifying extent of Dr. Kozlov's infiltration of palace security. He had not only accessed medical supply chains but had also found a way to contaminate Marcus's personal work equipment. The timing suggested that the clipboard had been treated with poison shortly after the medical delivery incident, indicating that Dr. Kozlov was monitoring the investigation and targeting its leader. Detective Collins coordinated with forensic specialists to trace how the clipboard might have been accessed. Security camera footage was reviewed to identify anyone who had been near Marcus's office or desk during the relevant time period. The investigation revealed that palace cleaning staff had access to all offices during overnight hours, providing a potential window for the contamination. However, background checks on all cleaning personnel showed no connections to Dr. Kozlov or suspicious activities. The cleaning staff had worked at the palace for years and had impeccable records. This suggested that Dr. Kozlov had used a different method to access Marcus's workspace, possibly through an accomplice, or by infiltrating the palace under a false identity. As Marcus's condition stabilized with medical treatment, Dr. Webb continued analyzing the specific neurotoxin used in the attack. Her research revealed that this particular poison had only been developed in specialized military laboratories, further confirming that Dr. Kozlov had access to advanced chemical weapons technology. The toxin was not available through normal channels and would require significant resources to obtain or manufacture. The international scope of the investigation expanded as intelligence. Agencies from multiple countries shared information about Dr. Kozlov's activities, his disappearance from academic circles 15 years ago, had been connected to several unexplained deaths of government officials and business leaders in Eastern Europe. The pattern suggested that he had been working as a freelance assassin for various criminal organizations and hostile governments. Marcus's poisoning was likely intended to eliminate the person most capable of preventing future attacks on the royal family. With the head of security incapacitated or killed, Dr. Kozlov would have a clearer path to complete his original mission. The assassination attempt on Marcus was both revenge for disrupting the medical supply plot and a strategic move to weaken palace security. Despite his weakened condition, Marcus insisted on continuing to coordinate the investigation from his hospital bed in the palace medical wing. His determination to protect the royal family remained unwavering, even as the toxin continued to affect his physical capabilities. Dr. Webb monitored his condition closely while providing regular updates on his recovery progress. The discovery of the poisoned clipboard marked a turning point in the investigation. Dr. Kozlov had revealed his continued presence in the area and his ability to strike at the heart of palace security. The investigation team now knew they were dealing with an enemy who was both patient and methodical, willing to wage a prolonged campaign against their defenses. As the third day of Marcus's poisoning concluded, the race to capture Dr. Kozlov intensified. Time was running out, and everyone involved in the investigation understood that the next attack might succeed where the previous attempts had failed. As Marcus's condition deteriorated on the fourth day, Dr. Webb realized that the antidote treatments were not working as effectively as hoped. The neurotoxin had bonded to his nervous system in ways that made it resistant to conventional medical interventions. His symptoms had progressed to include severe muscle weakness, difficulty breathing, and periods of confusion. The situation was becoming critical, and time was running out. Detective Collins coordinated with international medical experts who had experience treating victims of chemical weapons attacks. However, the specific combination of compounds in Marcus's bloodstream was unlike anything they had encountered before. Dr. Kozlov had created a unique poison that defied standard treatment protocols, demonstrating his expertise in chemical warfare. During this medical crisis, an unexpected ally emerged from the most unlikely source. A young cleaning lady named Maria Santos, who had worked at the palace for only 6 months, approached Detective Collins with crucial information. Maria had been reluctant to come forward earlier because of her immigration status and fear of losing her job, but Marcus's worsening condition compelled her to speak. Maria revealed that she had witnessed something strange 3 nights ago while cleaning the administrative offices. Around midnight, she had seen a man in a maintenance worker's uniform accessing Marcus's office, using what appeared to be electronic lock-picking equipment. The man was unfamiliar to her and his behavior seemed suspicious, but she had assumed he was a new employee working night shifts. More importantly, Maria had observed the intruder wearing protective gloves and using a small spray bottle to treat various surfaces in Marcus's office, including his desk and clipboard. The man had worked methodically, paying special attention to items that Marcus would handle regularly. After completing his task, he had carefully disposed of the gloves and spray bottle in a special containment bag. Detective Collins realized that Maria's testimony provided the missing piece of the puzzle. Dr. Kozlov had indeed infiltrated the palace by impersonating a maintenance worker, using forged credentials and electronic tools to bypass security systems. His knowledge of the palace layout and security protocols had allowed him to move undetected during overnight hours when most staff were absent. Maria's description of the intruder matched intelligence photographs of Dr. Kozlov, confirming his physical presence in the palace. She also mentioned that the man had spoken briefly on a mobile phone using a foreign language that sounded Eastern European, providing additional evidence of his identity. Her detailed observations demonstrated remarkable attention to detail despite her fear and confusion about the situation. The investigation team used Maria's information to trace Dr. Kozlov's infiltration route through the palace. Security camera footage was reviewed more carefully, focusing on maintenance areas and service corridors that were typically less monitored. They discovered several instances where a figure matching Dr. Kozlov's description had moved through the palace during overnight hours, always avoiding direct camera contact. Dr. Webb used Maria's description of the spray bottle and application method to refine her analysis of the neurotoxin. Understanding the exact delivery method helped her develop a more targeted treatment approach for Marcus's condition. She realized that the poison had been applied in a specific pattern designed to maximize absorption through repeated handling of contaminated surfaces. Meanwhile, Marcus's condition had reached a crisis point. His breathing was increasingly labored and his heart rate had become irregular. Dr. Webb explained to the investigation team that without a more effective treatment, Marcus might not survive another 24 hours. The neurotoxin was systematically shutting down his nervous system, and conventional medical interventions were proving inadequate. In a desperate move, Dr. Webb contacted her former colleague, Professor Elena Volkov, who worked at a specialized toxicology research institute in Switzerland. Professor Volkov had spent decades studying Soviet-era chemical weapons and had developed experimental treatments for various neurotoxins. Her expertise might provide the key to saving Marcus's life. Professor Volkov immediately recognized the symptoms. Dr. Webb described and confirmed that the poison was indeed a variant of weapons-grade neurotoxins developed in Soviet military laboratories. More importantly, she had been working on experimental antidotes for exactly this type of chemical agent. However, the treatment was still in clinical trials and had never been used on humans in a real poisoning case. The experimental treatment involved a combination of synthetic antibodies and enzyme inhibitors that could potentially neutralize the neurotoxin's effects. However, Professor Volkov warned that the treatment carried significant risks, including possible severe allergic reactions and organ failure. Without it, Marcus would certainly die, but the experimental antidote offered only a chance of survival, with potentially serious side effects. Dr. Webb presented the options to Marcus during one of his lucid moments. Despite his weakened condition, his mind remained sharp enough to understand the situation. He gave his consent for the experimental treatment, stating that he would rather risk death trying to recover than die passively while his team faced danger without their leader. The experimental antidote was flown from Switzerland, under emergency medical protocols, arriving at the palace within 12 hours of Professor Volkov's initial consultation. The treatment required careful administration over several hours, with continuous monitoring of Marcus's vital signs and neurological responses. Dr. Webb and a team of specialists from London's top hospitals supervised the procedure. As the experimental treatment began, Detective Collins received new intelligence about Dr. Kozlov's whereabouts. International law enforcement agencies had tracked suspicious financial transactions to a private clinic in Belgium, where Dr. Kozlov was reportedly seeking treatment for a chemical burn on his hand. The injury was consistent with exposure to the same neurotoxin he had used to poison Marcus, suggesting that he had accidentally contaminated himself during the clipboard operation. The Belgian authorities moved quickly to apprehend Dr. Kozlov, but they arrived at the clinic to find that he had already left. However, medical records showed that he had received treatment for severe chemical burns on his right hand and forearm. The attending physician had noted that the burns were consistent with exposure to industrial solvents or chemical weapons, providing additional evidence of Dr. Kozlov's involvement in the poisoning. More significantly, the medical treatment Dr. Kozlov had received indicated that he was suffering from the same neurotoxin poisoning that was affecting Marcus, albeit to a lesser degree. His accidental exposure meant that he was also fighting for his life, though his knowledge of antidotes and access to specialized medical care gave him certain advantages. The race against time had become a deadly competition between Marcus and Dr. Kozlov, with both men fighting the effects of the same poison they had been connected to through this elaborate assassination plot. The experimental treatment represented Marcus's best chance of survival, while Dr. Kozlov's fate remained unknown as he fled across international borders while battling his own chemical poisoning. Maria Santos, the cleaning lady whose courage had provided crucial evidence, was placed under protective custody as a key witness. Her willingness to come forward despite personal risks had potentially saved Marcus's life and provided the investigation with its most important breakthrough. Detective Collins ensured that Maria received proper legal protection and assistance with her immigration status as recognition for her invaluable contribution to the case. The experimental antidote began showing positive effects within 18 hours of administration. Marcus's breathing became less labored and his heart rate stabilized to more normal levels. Dr. Webb monitored his neurological responses closely, conducting regular tests to assess the recovery of his motor functions and cognitive abilities. The synthetic antibodies were successfully binding to the neurotoxin molecules and neutralizing their effects on his nervous system. However, the recovery process was not without complications. Marcus experienced severe nausea, temporary vision problems, and episodes of disorientation as his body fought to eliminate the toxin. Dr. Webb explained that these side effects were expected as the experimental treatment worked to reverse the poison's damage to his neural pathways. The key was maintaining his vital functions while allowing his body time to heal. Meanwhile, the international manhunt for Dr. Kozlov intensified as intelligence agencies tracked his movements across Europe. His medical treatment in Belgium had left a clear trail, as the specialized care he required was only available at certain facilities. Interpol coordinated with law enforcement agencies in France, Germany, and the Netherlands to monitor hospitals and private clinics that might treat chemical weapon exposure. The breakthrough came when German authorities identified Dr. Kozlov entering a private medical facility in Munich under yet another false identity. This time he was using the name Dr. Alexander Petrov and claiming to be a researcher who had been accidentally exposed to industrial chemicals. However, his symptoms were too specific to be explained by common industrial accidents, and the attending physician became suspicious. Dr. Kozlov's condition had deteriorated significantly since his treatment in Belgium. The neurotoxin he had accidentally absorbed was affecting him more severely than initially apparent. His right hand was partially paralyzed, his vision was impaired, and he was experiencing the same respiratory difficulties that had nearly killed Marcus. His knowledge of chemistry had not prepared him for treating his own poisoning effectively. German police surrounded the Munich clinic while Dr. Kozlov was receiving treatment. However, when they entered his room, they discovered that he had somehow managed to escape despite his weakened condition. The medical staff reported that he had left approximately 30 minutes before the police arrival, suggesting that he had been tipped off about their approach or had been monitoring their communications. Detective Collins flew to Munich to coordinate the international investigation personally. She worked with German authorities to trace Dr. Kozlov's escape route and identify any accomplices who might have assisted him. The investigation revealed that he had been in contact with a network of former Soviet intelligence operatives who specialized in providing support for covert operations. Back at the palace, Marcus's condition continued to improve steadily. By the 5th day of treatment, he was able to speak clearly and move his limbs with increasing coordination. His memory was intact, and his analytical abilities remained sharp despite the ordeal his body had endured. Dr. Webb was amazed by his recovery rate, attributing it to his excellent physical condition prior to poisoning and his strong determination to survive. Marcus insisted on participating in the investigation from his hospital bed, providing crucial insights about palace security vulnerabilities that Dr. Kozlov had exploited. His analysis revealed several weaknesses in the overnight security protocols that had allowed the infiltration to occur. He worked with his security team to implement immediate improvements while continuing his medical recovery. The investigation took an unexpected turn when Professor Volkov contacted Dr. Webb with disturbing news. Her research into the specific neurotoxin used in the attack had revealed connections to a series of unsolved assassinations across Eastern Europe dating back 15 years. The poison's unique chemical signature matched toxicological evidence from several high-profile murders that had been attributed to natural causes or accidental poisoning. This revelation transformed the investigation from a single assassination attempt into part of a much larger criminal conspiracy. Dr. Kozlov was not just a freelance assassin, but potentially a key figure in an international network specializing in chemical weapons attacks against government officials, business leaders, and other high-value targets. Intelligence agencies began sharing information about unsolved cases that might be connected to Dr. Kozlov's activities. The pattern that emerged was chilling. Over 15 years, he had likely been responsible for dozens of deaths across multiple countries, using his expertise in chemistry to create perfect murders that appeared to be from natural causes. Marcus's survival represented the first time one of Dr. Kozlov's victims had lived to tell the story. His detailed recollection of the poisoning symptoms and the investigation's documentation of the attack methods provided crucial evidence that could be used to reopen cold cases and identify other victims of this criminal network. Dr. Webb's medical analysis of the neurotoxin became a critical resource for international law enforcement. Her detailed documentation of the poison's effects and the experimental treatment's success provided a roadmap for treating future victims and potentially preventing similar attacks. She began collaborating with toxicologists worldwide to develop better detection methods and antidotes. As Marcus's physical strength returned, his determination to capture Dr. Kozlov intensified. He understood that as long as the assassin remained free, the royal family and countless others remained at risk. The personal nature of the attack had made this mission more than just professional duty. It had become a matter of justice and protection for innocent people worldwide. The investigation revealed that Dr. Kozlov's network had been planning additional attacks beyond the royal family. Intelligence gathered from his abandoned safe houses and communication intercepts indicated that several other European leaders were on his target list. His poisoning had likely disrupted a much larger assassination campaign that could have destabilized governments across the continent. Maria Santos, the cleaning lady whose testimony had been crucial to the investigation, was relocated to a secure facility for her protection. Her courage in coming forward had not only saved Marcus's life, but had potentially prevented multiple international assassinations. Detective Collins ensured that Maria received proper recognition and compensation for her invaluable contribution to the case. As the fifth day concluded, Marcus was finally strong enough to leave his hospital bed for short periods. His recovery was nothing short of miraculous, considering that the neurotoxin should have been fatal without treatment. The experimental antidote had not only saved his life, but had provided medical researchers with invaluable data about treating chemical weapons poisoning. However, the most important phase of the investigation was still ahead. Dr. Kozlov remained at large, wounded but dangerous, with access to deadly chemical weapons and a network of international criminals supporting his activities. The race to capture him before he could recover and strike again had become a priority for law enforcement agencies across multiple continents. Marcus knew that his recovery was only the beginning of a much larger battle against an enemy who had already proven capable of infiltrating the most secure facilities in the world and had been killing with impunity for over a decade. 6 weeks after his poisoning, Marcus had made a remarkable recovery and returned to active duty with enhanced security protocols throughout the palace. His brush with death had transformed him from a dedicated security professional into something more, a survivor who understood the true nature of modern threats against public figures. His experience with Dr. Kozlov's sophisticated assassination methods had provided invaluable insights for protecting not just the royal family, but government officials worldwide. The international manhunt for Dr. Kozlov had expanded to include 12 countries and involved coordination between multiple intelligence agencies. His trail had gone cold after his escape from Munich, but forensic analysis of evidence from his various safe houses revealed the scope of his criminal network. Financial records, chemical supply receipts, and communication logs painted a picture of an organization that had been operating across borders for nearly 2 decades. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Dr. Kozlov's accidental poisoning had left him in need of specialized medical care that was only available at certain facilities. His body's reaction to the neurotoxin was proving more severe than he had anticipated, and the partial paralysis in his right hand was affecting his ability to handle delicate chemical equipment. Intelligence agencies monitored medical facilities specializing in neurological rehabilitation, waiting for him to seek treatment. Marcus worked closely with international experts to develop new security protocols based on lessons learned from his near-death experience. His detailed recollection of the poisoning symptoms and attack methods became the foundation for training programs that would help security personnel worldwide recognize and respond to chemical weapon threats. His survival had provided crucial medical data that Dr. Webb and her colleagues used to develop better detection and treatment methods. The case took a dramatic turn when Croatian authorities detained a man seeking treatment at a specialized neurological clinic in Zagreb. The patient, using forged Polish identification, exhibited symptoms consistent with neurotoxin exposure and had chemical burns on his right hand that matched the pattern expected from Dr. Kozlov's accidental contamination. When confronted, the man initially maintained his false identity, but was ultimately identified through fingerprint analysis as Viktor Kozlov. Dr. Kozlov's capture revealed the full extent of his deteriorating condition. The neurotoxin had caused permanent damage to his nervous system, leaving him partially paralyzed and suffering from progressive cognitive decline. The same poison he had used to nearly kill Marcus was slowly destroying his own body, creating a form of poetic justice that satisfied many involved in the investigation. During his interrogation, Dr. Kozlov initially remained defiant, refusing to cooperate with authorities despite his weakened state. However, as his medical condition continued to deteriorate, he gradually became more willing to share information in exchange for advanced medical treatment. His admissions revealed a criminal network far more extensive than investigators had initially suspected. The confession sessions, conducted over several weeks while Dr. Kozlov received medical care under heavy security, unveiled decades of assassinations across multiple continents. He admitted to 37 successful kills using various chemical agents, many of which had been classified as deaths from natural causes. His victims included government officials, business leaders, journalists, and activists who had threatened the interests of his various employers. Marcus flew to Zagreb to confront Dr. Kozlov personally, accompanied by Detective Collins and a team of international investigators. The meeting between the poisoner and his intended victim was tense and emotionally charged. Dr. Kozlov, now confined to a wheelchair and speaking with difficulty due to his neurological damage, showed little remorse for his actions but expressed grudging respect for Marcus's survival. During their confrontation, Dr. Kozlov revealed that the attack on the royal family had been commissioned by a consortium of international criminals who viewed the British monarchy as a symbol of Western stability that needed to be undermined. The assassination was intended to be the first in a series of attacks against European leaders, designed to create political chaos and economic instability that would benefit their various criminal enterprises. The investigation into Dr. Kozlov's network led to arrests across 7 countries as law enforcement agencies dismantled the infrastructure that had supported his operations for years. Bank accounts were frozen, safe houses were raided, and dozens of accomplices were detained. The criminal organization had been more extensive than anyone had imagined, with tentacles reaching into legitimate businesses, academic institutions, and even government agencies. Maria Santos, the cleaning lady whose courage had been instrumental in solving the case, received official recognition from both the British government and international law enforcement agencies. Her immigration status was regularized, and she was offered a permanent position with enhanced responsibilities at the palace. Her keen observation skills and moral courage had literally saved lives and helped prevent an international catastrophe. Dr. Webb's medical research based on Marcus's case led to significant advances in treating chemical weapon poisoning. The experimental antidote that had saved his life was refined and approved for emergency use in cases of neurotoxin exposure. Her work became the foundation for new protocols at hospitals worldwide, potentially saving countless future victims of similar attacks. The palace security systems were completely overhauled based on lessons learned from Dr. Kozlov's infiltration. New technologies were implemented to detect chemical agents. Background check procedures were enhanced to prevent identity fraud, and protocols were established for handling medical supplies and other potentially contaminated materials. Marcus's experience had revealed vulnerabilities that no one had previously considered. Marcus returned to his duties as head of royal security with a deeper understanding of the evolving threats facing public figures in the modern world. His survival had not only protected the royal family, but had also provided law enforcement with crucial intelligence about international criminal networks. His detailed knowledge of Dr. Kozlov's methods became a valuable resource for training security professionals worldwide. 6 months after his poisoning, Marcus was awarded the George Medal for his exceptional service and courage. The ceremony was attended by members of the royal family, international law enforcement officials, and medical professionals who had contributed to his survival and the investigation's success. His story became a case study taught in security training programs around the world. Dr. Kozlov died in custody 8 months after his capture, his body finally succumbing to the effects of his own poison. His death marked the end of a criminal career that had spanned continents and decades, but his capture had provided investigators with enough information to continue dismantling the network he had worked within. Justice had been served, though not in the way anyone had expected. The case of the poisoned syringe became a landmark investigation that changed how international law enforcement agencies cooperate on chemical weapon threats. The collaboration between British authorities, international intelligence agencies, medical professionals, and even an immigrant cleaning lady demonstrated that protecting innocent lives requires contributions from people at every level of society. Marcus often reflected on how a moment of professional intuition about a medical delivery had prevented multiple assassinations and exposed an international criminal conspiracy. His attention to detail and willingness to investigate minor inconsistencies had saved not only his own life but potentially thousands of others who might have fallen victim to Dr. Kozlov's network. The most unexpected hero of the entire story remained Maria Santos, whose courage to speak up despite her fears had provided the crucial evidence needed to solve the case. Her transformation from a frightened immigrant worker to a recognized contributor to international security demonstrated that heroism can emerge from the most unlikely sources when ordinary people choose to do the right thing in extraordinary circumstances. Marcus's recovery and return to duty marked not just a personal victory over a sophisticated assassination attempt, but a triumph of international cooperation, medical innovation, and individual courage over organized criminal forces. The palace walls that had once seemed impenetrable had been breached, but the human spirit of those who protected them had proved even stronger than the most sophisticated chemical weapons. The story served as a reminder that in an interconnected world, threats can emerge from anywhere, but so can the solutions when dedicated professionals, brave individuals, and international partnerships work together to protect innocent lives and uphold justice.